Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Estonia once again, and we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that I brought back with me from my recent trip over there. So for this one we are going to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before, but this beer I think could be quite interesting. This is one of my favourite styles of Belgian traditional beer, and if memory serves me correctly, this could well be the first Estonian brewed example of this style that I'm going to review on the channel. So fingers crossed it's a good one. I've had really good experiences with the Estonian beers before, and I hope that this one lives up to that, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to a little place called Haapsalu, which is in western Estonia, and we're having a look at my first beer from Kolk Pruulikoda, or Kolk Brewery, I guess you could say. So this particular beer is called Sumin. It comes in at 9.5% ABV, and they're describing this one as a honey triple. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. I bought this beer, I believe, at Uba Jahumal in Tallinn, and they had a few different beers from this brewery, but the Tripel just kind of caught my eye because you don't see too many of those about. And like I say, I don't think I've had a triple from Estonia, so yeah, I thought this one would be the most interesting one to review here on the channel. Unfortunately, I was only able to bring back one of their beers with me, but I've got very good friends in Estonia, as I've told you before, so I'm sure we will have the opportunity to review a few more beers from these guys at some point in the fairly near future. But yeah, I think this is a really good one to start with, and it's always nice to introduce you guys to new breweries here on the channel as well. So yeah, let's get cracking with this one then. Very curious to see what it has in store for us. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Kolk Pruulikoda. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Estonian beers that I'm reviewing for you, and that has been added to quite gradually over the last little while, and I've still got a good few Estonian beers left, and I'm sure we'll get more in the future. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Kolk Brewery then, or Kolk Pruulikoda. So as I've mentioned to you already, this brewery are based in Haapsalu in western Estonia, and the company was founded back in 2015 by Peter Kolk. So he studied law at Tartu University, and he first came into contact with craft beer in the spring of 2012 during his student days. And after trying Brewdog Punk IPA, which was the first one apparently that he encountered, he started brewing beer with a few friends in a rented one-bedroom apartment in the Annalina area of the city. But one of these friends included a person who had been on exchange in the US. This was Tonis Tenev, and he'd had quite a bit of exposure to craft beer from what I understand, and was very enthusiastic about it. But they brewed together for quite a long time, and apparently they dedicated their summers to reading books and things on the internet about brewing beer just to build up their knowledge. But Peter soon decided that he wanted to continue brewing after he finished university, and so he founded Kolk Brewery officially in 2015 along with his father Tiit. So Tiit comes from a background as a forest engineer, and he acts as the company's business manager, but the family the family have got quite a diverse background from what I understand. They're originally from Salwe, which I believe is home to Ulenalt these days, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, the brewery itself, though, is based in a former car repair workshop in the Kajakas area of Haapsalu in Läänemaa in western Estonia. It's right across the water from Hiiumaa, which is the northernmost of the two large islands off the Estonian west coast. I still need to go and visit that actually, but when they started up, they invested around 300,000 euros in the beginning with some help from Enterprise Estonia and the Läänemaa Development Centre, and then production started off with a 1200 litre brew kit, and they quite quickly began to produce somewhere in the region of 8,000 litres of beer per month. But over time they've scaled this up to produce around 300,000 litres of beer per year. I'm not sure how accurate though that figure is for the moment, because I couldn't find anything more kind of up to date, if you like. I think the articles I read were from late 2018, if I remember correctly, and some of the history came from articles that were dated earlier than that, like 2016 or so. But as of April 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 22 different kinds of beer. So yeah, there's a few different varieties of styles available from these guys. But as I say, this is the one that caught my eye when I was in Uba ja Hummel in Tallinn. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about the brewery for the moment. The only other thing to add would be that Peter spent a year studying brewing technology in Tartu University as well. So yeah, I'll need to add that into the notes actually. After we finish this video for next time. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and get to the tasting section of the video. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is, you know, it's quite simple, but it's really modern and nice, I have to say. There you can see Kolk on the back, and that is also on the bottle cap as well. So yeah, very nicely presented, this one. So 330ml bottle. I honestly couldn't tell you what I paid for this, to be honest. I didn't keep my receipt from Uba ja Hummel, but I'm guessing it might be somewhere in the region of €4 or €5. Let's just say 5. I think it would be roughly for this. So yeah, that works out about like £4.50, maybe $6 American, just for those of you watching in different places. But yeah, the Estonian beers, they're a little bit more expensive than I remember them being when I was there in like 2014, 2015. But you know, the beer scene has changed a lot since then, of course. But yeah, this one, I think, yeah, paying €4 or €5 for a nice big Tripel like this is not really a big deal. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what it has in store for us. 9.5% honey Tripel. So let's get this guy out and into the glass then. My first Estonian Tripel. Exciting. I have to say, it looks good. Quite a difficult style to brew in terms of authenticity and things like that. But you know, I've had some nice examples from here in Sweden over the last little while. I don't know if I've ever had a Scottish Tripel. I don't think I've ever had one brewed in Scotland, come to think of it. Actually, perhaps maybe 1 or 2 from 6 Degrees North. But yeah, there's not many triples brewed back home in Scotland, but there's quite a few of them here in Sweden, in fact. So yeah, just checking that the bottle's lined up so that my OCD is happy, and I think it is. So yeah, just before the head disappears, you can see that it's poured with, you know, it's actually a very, very thin head, you know, like a 1/8 or 1/6 finger or something like that. And it's I'd say that that's a very, it looks as if it would be kind of pure white, but yeah, I think that would be a pure white head if it actually hung around for any length of time. But yeah, it's just faded away to be a very kind of thin, wispy layer over the surface. But you do have a nice little bit of a ring around the edge of the glass there. But I mean, overall, yeah, it's, yeah, I think pure white head on this one. But yeah, it's not hung around very much at all. But anyway, in terms of the colour and things, this is kind of what you would expect for a Tripel. It's one of the darker Tripels actually, and one of the more ambery leaning ones that I've come across before. But you know, there's a bit of a spectrum as to what these beers can actually be. Some of them will be very light and blonde, whereas some of them will be a little bit richer and amber like this. If this one's got the honey in it, you know, you would kind of expect that. So remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on a few different things. 1, the type of malts that you use. 2, the length of your wort boil, and then adjuncts and barrel aging can also affect these things. So obviously you've got an adjunct in here which will, I think, make the beer a little touch darker. I don't know how long they boil the wort in a Tripel actually. I would guess it's maybe between an hour and 90 minutes, something like that. I don't think it's a very long boil beer that you get in the Tripel. I think in the quadrupel they tend to boil it a little bit longer. But yeah, the more the more you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker beer. But yeah, this one has a really lovely kind of amber tint to it. It's got a bit of a natural haze to it, as you can see if we stick our fingers behind the glass there. There is a bit of that lovely natural haze there. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it looks pretty nice, and it's pretty much as you would expect from a Tripel, but one of the darker ones I've come across, one of the more rich amber leaning ones that I've come across in recent times. So yeah, I really like how that goes together in this one. I think it looks very, very nice. One of the things they often do with triples is that they add a little bit of brewing sugar into it. That's the reason why Belgian beers have, you know, quite a light mouthfeel compared to, you know, the ales that are of similar percentages, because they use brew sugar and for the secondary fermentation and things like that, rather than, you know, going all out with the malt. But yeah, I'm curious to see whether how this one turns out in that regard, because obviously you've got the honey in there as an adjunct. So was the honey used as a substitute for the brew sugar, or is it used in addition to the brew sugar? We'll need to, I'm sure we can figure that out from the flavour of it. But as I say, it looks very, very nice. Let's move on to the aroma and see how we get on with this one then. Ooh, that does smell nice. That does smell very good. Oh, nose is a little blocked. There we go. But yeah, that's a lovely smelling beer. You can smell the honey right away in this one. The honey's very rich actually, and it actually dominates the aroma, which is quite nice. Some of the, I'm sure I have had one or two triples with honey in them before, but it's been a long while. But sometimes the honey can just be like a light sort of, just can sit in the background and be a bit of a subtlety. But here it does show you, yes, the honey is there. It's a honey forward triple, I think, is the best way to describe this one. But yeah, the aroma out of that is very, very nice. So straight away with this one then, you get that big oily kind of honey thing coming out of this one straight away. It reminds me of like when you get an ice cream cone and you've got the kind of wafer in it there. It's got a little bit of that sort of honeycomb, slightly biscuity edge to it, the honey in this one. But the honey you get here, it comes across as very rich. It almost has a little bit of a grassiness to it as well, which is interesting. I just get a little bit of grassiness out of this honey, which is cool. Yeah, honey can, you know, honey obviously varies from beehive to beehive, because you've got different types of pollens going into the bees and blah blah blah. But the honey that you get out of this one, to me, it just has a very slight grassy sort of edge to it, which is interesting. So yeah, lovely big rich oily thick honey note coming out of this, just with a little bit of a grassy edge, and you've got a wee bit of that kind of caramel wafery sort of thing in it as well. But that forms a big component of this beer. And when it's called a honey triple, I feel like I'm stating the obvious here, but yeah, this beer goes together very nicely. Underneath that though, you can smell a little bit of that typical doughy, yeasty sort of thing that you'll always get from the triple as a style. So there's a little bit of a kind of breadiness in there. You can smell a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty quality. There's maybe a wee touch of a you do get little touches of those sort of banana-y, clovey type things that you would expect, but I would say that this is a really brown sugary leaning triple, this one. It actually smells very clean. Quite often with triples, they can smell a little bit sort of raw and things, if that makes sense, you know. Because Belgian style beer is of course all about the yeast. It's not like the German beers where it's you know, it's very clean and it's about the, you know, the malt and the hops and the actual combination of all of these things. Belgian beer tends to all be, the focus is of course on the yeast and just having a bit of rawness about the beer. So you can get a little bit of that underneath this one, but it comes across as very clean. But you see the same thing up here in Sweden with the, I should say over here, these guys are quite north as well, but you see the same thing here in Sweden with the triples. They come across very clean compared to the ones that you get brewed down in Belgium. So yeah, the aroma of this one though, I think is very, very nice actually. I could sit and sniff this all day, but as I say, the backbone of the beer, there is a wee bit of breadiness to it. I get a little bit of bread crust. You can smell the kind of doughy, yeasty elements in there. There's a wee bit of clovey spice, and you get a wee hint of kind of banana and things out of the yeast as well. But on top of that, it's all about the honey. It is all about the honey, and you can smell a little bit of a kind of, I get a little bit of a kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive sort of thing coming out of this as well, the more that I smell it. But yeah, the aroma on the malty, adjuncty side of this beer, I think is very rich and very nice actually. The more I smell it, the more it seems kind of oily, which I can really appreciate. So yeah, the aroma out of this beer, I think, is very, very nice. Let's just say that. Yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of that before you get stuck into it. I think it goes together very, very nicely. So big thumbs up to Kolk for the malty, adjuncty side of the aroma here. On the hoppy side of things, it kind of smells as you'd expect. Like quite often when it comes to triples, they'll use you know, Hallertau or Tettnanger hops from Germany. They've got a few hop varieties in Belgium that they can use as well. But yeah, it smells. I mean, Czech Sats and Slovenian Styrian Goldings is another one that are other ones that you can use in here, and it does have a little bit of that kind of vibe going on. It's got that sort of Central European kind of vibe to the green component, so there's a little bit of a kind of soft earthiness in there. You do get a nice little bit of floral character out of this one, and the grassiness I think just has a wee touch of zestiness. Of course, if I've had this beer sitting for maybe about 6 or 7 months in the fridge, so you know, obviously if you drink this beer a bit fresher, you will get a little bit more hoppy character out of it, but it has maintained a good little green component there, absolutely. So yeah, a little bit earthy, wee touch herbal as well, some nice floral aromaticity, and a good bit of a lighter sort of grassiness as well. So I really like how this beer goes about its business. So yeah, it gets it gets my approval on the green component as well. On the fruity side of things, it's got the typical things you'd expect. There's a wee bit of apricot in there, but you've got a good little bit of a peary, appley sort of thing out of this one. I find this beer really quite peary leaning, to be honest. Yeah, for me, yeah, it's quite peary, and there's a good bit of like sultana in this beer as well. So just to clear it up, because I've had questions about this before, for me sultanas are, you know, dried white and green grapes, with it maybe sometimes 1 or 2 little kind of more pinky coloured grapes in there as well. So I do get quite a bit of that dried sultana type quality out of this one. So yeah, apricot, sultana, a bit of an appley and peary ester, it's these kind of things you're getting out of the fruity side of this beer, all of which is typical for the style, to be honest. So yeah, let's have a little look at this beer then and see how we get on. I think it's time to taste it. So yeah, this one is the Sumin, which I understand means something like buzz, which I think is probably a reference to, you know, bees buzzing around the hive. So correct me on that. If someone in Estonia is watching, correct me if I'm wrong about that with the name. I stuck it into Google Translate, which isn't always the best, but yeah, so I think the name means buzz. But this one, a 9.5% honey triple from Kolk Pruulikoda in Haapsalu over in Western Estonia. Always nice to do these Estonian reviews for you. Slanje, skull, cheers, terviseks. Oh. Now, this is a beer that is all about the aftertaste. Yeah. It's kind of like I thought it was going to be from the aroma. It's very clean. It comes across with a really clean mouthfeel and things, and you often get this, as I say, from triples that are brewed in countries that are not Belgium, basically. So it's a very clean triple, but it's got a lovely aftertaste to it. This beer, I think, takes a little bit of time just to kind of open up and show you that, but yeah, this is nice. I certainly like this, so thumbs up to Kolk for this. Yeah, I think this is really interesting as well. The other thing that they've managed to do with this beer, I think that's very interesting. The first impression that I have of this one, this is definitely quite an oily example of a triple, but as I say, it's very clean, and it doesn't give you the alcohol burn either, which is good. Like quite often with triples, I find they do feel boozy. That one's ridiculously drinkable for a triple. That's dangerously drinkable. So yeah, quite a few interesting things to say about this beer for sure. Actually, I like this one. But yeah, this beer, it opens up. Take a few sips of this before you start kind of judging it, because it does open up really nicely. But yeah, where to start with this one then? So we'll do it as we always do, middle third of your palate. So for me, you can feel with this beer, you do get a little bit of a kind of, you can feel a little bit of a sort of malty, bread crusty sort of thing, just kind of forming the backbone of the beer. It tastes a little bit like, you know, banana bread. So it's like you've got a nice kind of white bready quality to it. There's a bit of that kind of sweet, slightly fruity banana type thing to it, and then there's a little bit of that clovey spice just all mixed in. But that banana bready clovey backbone is really quite smooth. It is really quite it's really quite smooth, and I like the way it goes about its business. Absolutely, it works. It's so that the malty side of this beer actually again comes across very clean, and it's very straight shooting in a sense, and then above that it's all about the brown sugars. So I would say that this beer, in terms of its flavour composition, it's remarkably straight shooting, but it really works for the beer. It really highlights the honey very nicely. You get one or two, if you go to the front corners of your palate and then move diagonally back, you do get one or two little woody aromas. Not aromas, flavours. There's a little bit of flavour, a little bit of a slightly woody flavour pushing its way out of this beer, which I can certainly appreciate. So I really like how that goes together in this beer for sure. But yeah, the sort of malty backbone that you get in this one, I think works very well. Just checking as well, there's no sediment in the, well, there's a tiny little bit of sediment in the bottom of the bottle here. So, and that's the other thing, we'll talk about the carbonation a little bit later, but the other thing is, this beer is very, very smooth. And normally if you've sat with a Tripel, you wouldn't expect that after like 6 or 7 months in the fridge. You would expect a bit of carbonation, almost to the point, sometimes to the point where the beer's going to explode on you. But yeah, this one is just, it's a very, very smooth beer, and I think again that's something that helps promote the honey in this. So yeah, we've covered the base layer of the beer, but on top of that, that's when you start to get the brown sugar, and again the honey comes across with this really sort of oily. Oily isn't even the right word, as I say. It's almost, if you think a little bit like cookie dough, but not quite as thick. That's what I'm finding from the honey side of this beer. It's got that it's very oily and like highly caramelized in a sense, but it's just got a little bit of that almost biscuity, cookie type quality to it, which is really nice. So in the very center of your palate, you can feel that's the kind of epicenter of all the kind of brown sugary notes that you're getting out of this beer. So there is a bit of you can feel there is a wee bit of maybe a tiny little hint of a slightly treacly note, but as you move further out from that, you start to get a more oily caramel, and then the honey notes. It's the thing that for me that defines honey from caramel, if you like, in terms of flavour, is honey just feels a bit lighter. It feels a little bit almost woody and biscuity in a sense, and that's what you get from this beer. It's very in the very centre of your palate, it's very sort of concentrated and really, really thick, and then as you just move out from that centre of your palate, you can feel that the flavour gradually becomes a little touch woody and biscuity and things like that. So as you reach the edges of your palate, with this one, you're getting little hints of like McVitie's digestive biscuits and things like that, and sort of cookies. I don't know how good a reference that is for Estonians that are watching this. I can't remember if you get McVitie's digestive biscuits in Estonia though, but yeah, it has a little bit of that sort of biscuity cookie sort of vibe to it, which I really like. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is very, very nice. Yeah, the flavour profile of this beer, I think, is very, very nice. It's, as I say, it's a very clean and very straight shooting Tripel, but I think that it just works. It really works very, very nicely. So yeah, it's not this one. It feels very refined. It doesn't have the rawness that you'll get from some of the Belgian brewed ones and things like this, but it's nice to have something a little bit different. You like to see diversity within styles when you're reviewing beers, and this one ticks the boxes for me. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink that again. I think it'd be interesting to try it on tap, but I think if you did that, 150 millilitres or something like that is good for me. A little taster, I would say, is good for me in that sense. But yeah, this beer certainly gets a thumbs up from me. I really like this one. I need to have a look at their website and see what else they've got. Maybe I could do a wee order and pick up a few of them or something like that. Try something from the dark end of the spectrum as well and see what that's all about. But yeah, I think, to be honest, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate quite well in this one. I think the middle third of your palate, of course, is where the most complex notes come out of the beer, and that's exactly what you get with this one. But yeah, if you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel there is a little slight increase of a more bready note there. There's a little bit of a more grainy bread crust as well, and then on the back third of your palate, again, you'll get a little bit more kind of graininess and almost a little bit of a slightly more bread crusty element, but you can feel some of the yeasty notes sitting on top of that, a bit of the kind of more airy, bready quality. So at the back of the palate, on the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavours kind of like this tall, and as you move further forward to the middle third, it goes, you know, as it goes further forward, and you can see that the flavour kind of condenses down like that and moves into the more, it moves into a more dense state in that middle third of your palate. So I can certainly appreciate how that that comes together in this one. I like that. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, then I think we've covered the malty, yeasty and adjuncty side of this beer quite well. On the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate, it's a little touch earthy. You get a sort of soft, smooth earthiness. I do suspect heavily that it's some sort of noble hop that's in this. Czech Sats, Slovenian Styrian Goldings, Hallertauer Tintang, or something like this. But as you move further forward, you do get a little bit of a herbal quality, and as you gradually kind of progress towards the front corners of the palate, it's got a nice little floral aromatic component to it, and then round the very front curve of the tongue, the beer is just a little bit lighter and more grassy in a sense. So yeah, you do get a little bit of zestiness on the grassiness too, and as I said, if you drink this beer a bit fresher than I am, you will get more of that, obviously, because the hops gradually drop out over time. But yeah, let's examine the fruity side of the beer then, front third of the palate. So yeah, again, on that border between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of doughy, bready sort of thing coming out of it. A bit of bread crust. The backbone of that front third of your palate is definitely quite smooth and, in a sense, sort of bready as well, actually. Not too clovey, but yeah, quite bready. Actually, I would stick with that. But as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And for me, this one, it really leans, it's really sultana-like. You get a lot of sultanas out of this beer, I think. So yeah, for me, quite sultana-like. You know, you could argue there's wee hints of apricot in there as well on the back half of that front third of your palate. So yeah, very, you know, big oily sultana notes for me. A little bit of a how would you say, a little bit of an apricot-y note underneath it. But as you move on to the kind of front third of your palate, the front half of that front third of your palate, wake up, you do get a bit of a kind of gooseberry. For me, there is a bit of a gooseberry kind of note underneath this one. Could there be a bit of Hallertau Blanc in here or something like that? You know, a late edition Hallertau Blanc. That would be interesting. But yeah, you do get there's a wee bit of gooseberry for me, but then you get a nice peary note, and then on the very tip of the tongue, it's almost a little bit appley. You just get a little bit of a kind of appley bite out of this one, and then the grassy, citrusy elements as well. So the fruity side of this beer for me also works very well. This is just a really nice, it's a really nice kind of concoction, if we can call it that, this beer. I think it works really well, but a very clean triple, very straight shooting in a lot of ways. But you know, the more you drink of it, the more it kind of opens up, I think. But thumbs up to Kolk Pruulikoda for this. I think they've pulled off a really solid beer with this, and the triple's a hard style to get right. So yeah, very clean, very oily, but I think a really nice example of the style. I can feel the booze starting to hit me now with this one. So yeah, watch it. Watch it when you drink this one. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off the review, I would say that this beer it's kind of bottom end of full-bodied. Yeah, bottom end of full-bodied for me, pushing middle of full-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth and almost to the point where it's non-existent in this beer, actually, and that's one of the differences with the Belgian brewed ones as well. Normally you'd expect this style to have a bit of a kind of carbonation bite to it in a sense, but this one takes the approach of being very slick and very oily and very clean in a lot of ways. So it's a very slick, clean, oily triple, this one, which I like, and often you'll find this, as I say, with this style brewed in other places other than Belgium. But yeah, in terms of hoppy bitterness, I think, you know, this has got to, it's only about 20 IBUs or something like this. It's a very low IBU beer, probably not even 20 IBUs. But yeah, the malty, yeasty side of things, it's got a nice bready base to it. As I said, there's a bit of smoothness in there. You've got the nice kind of biscuity honey elements in there as well. It feels very oily and very sweet and nice in the middle of your palate. It's got everything that you would want in there. A few woody undertones. But yeah, the middle of your palate is distinctly smooth but also quite sweet. There's a little bit of savoury and sweet in there, and then you've got a nice oily fruity character to this beer. So it gives you everything you would want from the Tripel style, to be honest with you. I think it's a really nicely done beer, this, and on the basis of this one, I certainly wouldn't hesitate to try more beers from this brewery. So yeah, well done to Kolk Pruulikoda for this. They've impressed with this one. This review's been a little bit longer, of course, because I think this beer takes a bit of time to really show you what it's all about, but it's worth it. It is kind of worth it. This is why I like doing the slightly longer reviews and just sharing my thoughts with you. But yeah, I guess we can leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Kolk Pruulikoda, and I do hope we can return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. This one has been the Sumin, a 9.5% honey triple, and I think it was really nicely done. It showed itself, it gave itself a really good account of itself, I should say, as it opened up. So yeah, thank you again for watching. I'll catch you guys soon. Make sure you check out the brewery, check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, Tervi 6.